right. And just double check. I think we got enough space, but yesterday, for whatever reason, one of the classes, it recorded halfway and then something happened to it. I think I might have accidentally knocked on the USB cable and the microphone got dislodged. So that might be the reason. Anyway,
get a larger capacity hard drive.
Yeah, I just need to clean it up once in a while. Alright, so let's make sure that it is recording. Yep. So you can see that this is the application that is doing the recording, and it is actually graphically showing you that it is getting the input. So this is good confirmation that we are actually recording the audio part. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is to find out where. Okay, right there. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to. Did it? Oh, no, it's still here. Okay. So we'll check whether the device is connected. It should be connected. All right, it is. Now we can go ahead and install. Yep.
On Linux or Unix systems, do you have to put that / for running?
No.
In non-Linux system, you do not need to do the /, but in Linux you normally do, because the current directory is not on the path, so it won't look in the current directory for the executable.
Interesting.
Yeah, Windows just make the assumption that you want to search in the current directory first, and then it goes to the path. But in Linux, it just follows one convention. If it's not in the path environmental variable, it is not going to search there unless you tell it, go to this folder, it is there. And that's what / means, is in the current folder, look for this executable.
Or you could just add at the end of your path the /.
Yep.
Where Windows, it complains if you have /. It doesn't like it.
Okay, I think this is number 6. So .apk, it is now installing the app. Alright. So we go to FT Explorer 2. Start the app. Alright, so the way we have it right now is, when I long press the lane number button, it brings up the dialog box so that I can enter the starting lane number, and that's the only thing it does. Okay, I enter 4, and then it changes all of the other one, and now we're ready to record. But if we also want to record the actual number of lanes, so that we know, so the app can wrap around by itself without me having to do anything, then we need to have the mechanism to ask me a second question and say, okay, now that we know what is the starting lane number, what is the maximum number of lanes, or you can change the order of the question. As long as it's prompted correctly, it will still be okay. All right, so what we want to do is to find out, okay, how do we change the current structure of the program to do that? All right. Everything has to do with the event handler called after-text input. This is really the key. After-text input is triggered whenever you type something in a dialog box and then press the enter key. This gets it. Okay. So now the problem has to do with what if we want to attach the second question to the same notifier. Now the easy answer is to use a different notifier, right? You use a different notifier, and then it will be a different notifier getting the event, and we won't have a problem at all. But on the other hand, if you do want to use the same notifier, then we have a little problem, because when after text input is triggered, it doesn't know whether it is getting the response from the first question or the second question. Yes?
Procedure. Fold the current code into a procedure, and then have a second procedure for setting the max lane number, and have the notifier call, or whatever's calling the notifier.
But but in the event handler after text input, you do not know it is the response of which question.
Right.
So this is the interesting part. How do we deal with this? You need some way, using in the form of a global variable or a part of a global variable if it's a list, to indicate the current state that you're in. Okay, so that's basically what you need. We like to put stuff into match information, but this is not one of the things that you want to put into match information, because you can do it that way. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, let me just kind of show you what seemed to make sense to me. All right, so let's go to the long click event here. Okay, when you click long click, it means I want to reset the start lane number and also the maximum number of lanes. So at this point, one thing I can do is to clear those two key value pairs from match information, to basically say, okay, whatever I have from before, those should be gone now, because I'm resetting both of those, and I can double use those the presence or the absence of those particular key value pairs to indicate which stage I'm in, and kind of use that to help me determine what I should do when I get to after text input is triggered. Okay, is everybody kind of understanding where I'm going? Okay, maybe not the details of how to do it, but what I'm trying to achieve here. All right. Okay, so now we have a kind of unique challenge, because we need to remove something from the key value pair list, and nothing can help us to do that. You can look at lists here. There's a way to remove something. Okay, you can actually look through this list. There's a remove item from list, but you have to tell it which one you're removing. But I don't know the index, because everything is done by keying, using a key value pair. So I don't know the index. I cannot use this block here. The procedure that I have written myself, which is update KV list, also cannot be helpful here, because it is designed to replace the value of a key value pair and not to remove the entire pair from the list itself. Okay, so we kind of have an interesting issue here, because there's a way to kind of work it into update KV list, is to associate a value that does not make sense with the key that we are dealing with. Okay, but I don't really like that idea too much. Okay, so what we'll do instead is to implement another procedure to remove a key value pair from a key value pair list. Okay, I think that would be the proper solution to this particular problem. So this block is not useful to me, because it's just not going to do what I need to do. So what we'll do is we'll write another procedure, and I'm going to start all the way over here. So this is a procedure, and I'm going to make this procedure return a value, which is basically indicating whether something was actually deleted or not, okay, because that can be helpful to me. So we use this particular type of procedure, and it is going to be named remove KV pair from list. Okay, I can make it as long as I want to, because in app inventor programming, I don't have to type the name of a procedure. So I just have to name it, and from here on, I just have to drag it from this particular drawer. If I'm doing regular type of programming, especially not using Eclipse or anything that has the automatic completion part, using a long procedure name can be a little bit tedious sometimes, because I have to retype the same name over and over again.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste, yeah.
That's what I do. I just keep a notepad with all my procedures that I can copy and paste.
All right.
Rolling list.
Yeah, it's an issue, because you do want to make it long, so that the name itself tells you what the procedure does. But if you make it too long, then every time you type it, you have to type all the
once any other programmer has to use it.
Yep. All right. So we need two things, right? Because we need the list from which we're trying to delete a key value pair, and then we also need the key of the KV pair that we are removing. Okay, so we need 2 of these names. So those would be the parameters. Now that we are done with the parameters, we can now go ahead and specify the code. When we specify the code, we are going to rely on local variables to help us. So we'll go ahead and do this here. And then we have a block that will give us a result. Okay, so it's going to be a do block, but it also specifies a result like this. Okay, so now we have the basic structure of a subroutine that has its own local variables, but yet it also returns a result. Okay, these two can kind of reverse the direction, but it's better to do it this way so that the local variable can be the result, because otherwise you cannot return a local variable that is no longer in existence. All right, so the first one I'm going to name result, which is what I'm going to return here. And so I already know what I'm returning. It is just whatever result is. I can give it a default value. Let's say I can give it a default value of false, okay, which basically means I am not removing anything. I cannot find the key that you're looking for, and therefore nothing is actually removed or deleted from the list. Okay. So in the do loop here, we need to go through the list to find that one item that we're looking for. Okay. And there's a particular control structure that can be helpful to us, but we also have to think about the actual removal. How are we going to remove that item? The removal of the item relies on this particular block in lists, which is remove list item, which is based on index number. So that means when I find the item that I'm deleting, I need to know its current index number so that I can actually delete it. Or I will locate it first in a loop, and then after I get out of the loop, I'll go ahead and delete it. Okay, so there are several ways to do this. Depends on which way makes more sense to you. So what I'll do is I'm going to use a for loop for each item in list kind of loop here. And that list is just going to be the list as a parameter to me. So what I'm going to do in this loop is to look for the item, compare the key of each item in the list with the key that I'm searching for. If I find it, I'll note the actual index number, and then when I get out of the loop, I'll delete it. It is not a good idea to delete it while you're still in the loop. The reason why that is the case is the loop itself for each item in blah blah blah, the loop itself is trying to maintain some kind of state information of the list that we're processing. If you delete an element from the list inside this loop here, the intermediate information tracked by the loop itself may get upset. Okay, it may lose consistency with the actual list that we're processing. So that's why it's not a good idea to remove something from the list that you are using in a for each loop. And that's why we'll get out of the loop first, and then we'll actually do the deletion. So the only thing to do in the loop really is to do a comparison, use a conditional statement, and basically say if we have two strings that are the same, the first one being the key that I'm looking for, which is a parameter, and then the second one is the key of the item that we are on at this point. Okay, and the key is always the first item of the item, or the first thing in that list. So we go to select list item, and the list is our item here, and the index is going to be 1 because it is the first one that is dealing with the key. So we'll change this to 1 here. So now we have the comparison. If the condition is true, that means I have just found the key value pair that I'm supposed to delete. I'm not going to do a single thing here. What I'll do is I'm going to maintain another local variable here, and I can just call that index to delete, or index of the item to delete. But I'm just going to abbreviate here to just index to delete. And the only thing to do at this point is to set that variable to oh, I don't have the number here. Okay, so I need to maintain the number as well. Let's make sure that this is initialized to something. I need one more variable at this point. And that variable is just index, index. And index is going to be initialized to 1 because the first item has an index of 1. And then every time we go through this loop, we have to increment index at the end of the iteration. But for now, I just need to set index to delete to the current value of index at that point. And then after the conditional statement, I'm going to increment index to index plus 1. So now we go to math, do the addition, and we are dealing with index plus 1. Go. All right. So are there any questions about the loop? The loop is done. Okay. I'm just scanning through, and yes, it is not particularly smart because if I find the item that I'm looking for as the first item, it will still go through the rest of the list. Okay. So it's not optimized for performance. If you want to optimize for performance, you don't want to use a for each loop. Okay. You have to make your own while do loop and maintain the actual index and use the index to go through the item. This is just easier, from the perspective of looking at the code. This is actually cleaner, but in terms of performance, it's not really the best that you can do. All right. So when we get out of the loop, okay, when we get out of the for each loop, the first thing we do is to say, okay, did we find the item that we are searching for? And that is indicated by the value of index to delete, because if it is not found, it has a value of 0, which is not a valid index in App Inventor. It is a valid index in C and C++ in Java, but it's not in App Inventor. Then I know that, okay, it's not found, nothing was done, so result can keep its false value. On the other hand, if index to delete is no longer 0, that means I found it, and now the index to delete variable is storing the index of the item that I'm supposed to delete. So that means I need a conditional statement after the loop to say, okay, what is the current value of index to delete? So I'm going to go to math here and do a comparison. Compare. Right there. And the comparison is really just asking, is index to delete greater than 0? Because if it is greater than 0, that means I have just found the item that I'm supposed to delete. Now I can use the remove list item block here and say that from the list that I'm given with, using index to delete, remove that item. Okay. And at the same time, after this, I'm going to set result to true. So when we go to variables, at this point we'll set local variable result to true. So this procedure, not even though it's not like completely optimal, will do what we need to do. Okay, it will find the item that has the key that we are searching for, and delete that particular item from the list. Are we okay with this? Okay. All right. So now that we have a block like this, we can now go back to the long click event and say, okay, let's clear both of those items first, and then we'll use the presence or the absence of those particular key value pairs to indicate which stage we're in when we get after text input. Are there any questions at this point? No questions? Okay, nobody feels this is like really convoluted? No? Okay. Well, it will get convoluted if I don't comment this code and come back and look at my own code 2 weeks or 3 weeks from today. Then I'll go like, wow, how convoluted this is. That's why commenting is always useful. Yep. And in App Inventor, you can just right click on the block and say add comment, and you can add it to even a tiny little block like this. You can add comment. So it's really handy because you can now comment just about anything, and you can hide it too. So you can click it to show, and then click it again to hide it. All right. So now that we have a block like that, we'll go ahead and use a trash variable again, because I don't really need to know whether I found it or not. I just need to get it done. Remove it. So I'll just go ahead and say trash can is initialized to false. I just want to make sure that I don't have any warnings below that. And then we just need to use our procedure that we have just written twice, okay, to remove the 2 items from the list, just so that I have I know where we are at. So we use set trash can to. This is get set. There we go. And the list that we're dealing with is just match information. And the first one is going to be start lane number. All right. We don't have a name for the number of lanes yet, so we're going to have to make a new variable for that purpose. So we duplicate this block, and then we change this to. In programming, we call it maximum, but to most people it's just the number of lanes, in a particular match. But I'm going to use max lane here, and change it to max lane. So now I can say, let's replicate this block and do the same thing, except this time we are going to do it to max lane. And right there. There we go. And we have no use of this little block here. So long click is now doing something in addition to what it used to do. It is now clearing what I already remember as the start lane number, if there's one, and also the maximum number of lanes. So in after text input, now it gets a little bit more complicated. And whenever something gets really kind of more complicated, it's probably a good idea to turn it into a procedure, turn it into a subroutine. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll look at after text input and turn it into a subroutine. The question is, where am I going to turn it into a subroutine? This is going to initialize the match, which is only changing the start lane number. Okay, that certainly can be useful already, but I cannot even call this until I know whether it is time to call this or not. Okay, so instead of stashing all the logic here, I'm going to put the logic into a new procedure. So let's go ahead and write a new procedure first, which will only take a single parameter, which is response, and that's going to be, it will do all the additional processing at that point. So I'm going to put it over here. This is a pretty good, clear, area. So we'll go ahead and make a new procedure, and the new procedure is going to be named your process text start lane text. There we go. It will take a single parameter, which is the response, and we'll put all the magic here. So in order to do all the magic, the first thing we need to do is to find out whether a particular key value pair is already here, because that is indicative of what we need to do at this point. So if we want to keep the order of specifying the start lane number first and then enter the maximum number of lanes, then we have to check whether the start lane property or the start lane key value pair is already in match information. Okay. Now you can do it in a different order, but it's basically the same strategy to do it. All right. So the first thing we need to do is just to find out, okay, is it there or not? To find out whether it is there or not, is pretty simple. because we need a conditional statement that will check whether a particular key value pair is already in match information. And the last item of the list drawer, which is lookup in pairs, can give me that information already. So what I'll do is to specify, let's see, okay, I'll just go ahead and pull a get here, and then from here I can take a look at the available lanes or the strings that we have defined so far, and we're looking for start lane first. Okay, so start lane is the key, and the pairs is going to be our match information, the global variable match information. So we'll duplicate the get block, and this time we pick match information. And this part is kind of important because we have to find out whether it is there or not. If it is already there, it has to be a numerical value. If it's not there yet, it's going to be whatever we specify here. Is that okay so far? Okay. So what we can do is to keep not found, and then what we'll do is go to math and just ask, is it a number? Because if it does come back as a number, that means it is already in the key value pair list of match information. If it comes back it is not a number, it has to be because it is not found. So now we can differentiate whether we are dealing with a start lane number or whether we're dealing with the maximum number of lanes. So which also means that we need an else block here, because there's another branch that we need to deal with. Okay, if it is a number, that means we are now asking for. Yep, go ahead.
A small question about the other procedure you did.
Which other procedure?
The one where you actually removed one key value pair.
Yep, which is right here.
The index and the value. What happens in the list when that happens? Do the indexes actually fix themselves, or is there, like, for instance, if it's index 6 that you deleted, does it go from index 5 to index 7, or does it fix itself to make index 7, which was originally index 7?
That is why I put the deleting outside of the for each loop.
Oh, okay.
Because if I do it inside, then all the subsequent items will have a different index number. So it's much better to do it outside, because other types of information will be tracked by the statement itself, like where I'm at this point. So if you delete one element, the one that it's looking at, it might do something that will change the logic, or that it will affect the logic of for each, and it's just not a good idea to do that, and that's why I'm doing it outside. Alright, so getting back to where we were working on here. Okay, so the then block is going to deal with the second number. So what we'll do is we'll prompt the user again using show text dialog, and this time the message is going to be the maximum number of lanes. Okay, so we'll just ask what is the maximum, what is the number of lanes? Okay. And if you want to be absolutely clear, then you can say what is the total number of lanes, or what is the last lane. What is the number of the last lane? I think that's better. The number of the last lane. There we go. And then we specify something for the title itself, which has to be a little bit shorter. So we'll just say enter a number. Yep.
It's not relevant to the application, I'll wait.
Oh, okay. But still, we can go ahead and ask.
Is there a way to overwrite a DB entry?
Override a tiny DB entry?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time you store a value into a key of a tiny DB entry, it overrides the current value.
Alright, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we are still making this cancelable, so it can be canceled. Okay. All right. So this is not gonna. It will come back later on, and we'll have to do the processing next. Okay. All right. So this means we got this already. we're now asking, and something is amiss. I'm still missing something here. Okay, think about that later. Okay, the else is going to be corresponding to, we don't have a start lane yet, so it's time to set the start lane at this point, which means I'm going to borrow some blocks from the original code, which is now all the way down here. Okay, so we'll just borrow this code here, and I'm just going to duplicate this block and try my best to move it to where it's supposed to go.
Graphical programming at its best.
Yes.
It'd be nice if you could zoom out and zoom in.
To zoom out and zoom in.
Yeah, on the work area. That way, if you want to move something from over here to over there, you zoom out, drag it, and zoom back in.
You can. The normal zoom control for the browser still works, so you can actually do it that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is work quite.
And I just noticed, an error on my part. This block here, show text dialog, doesn't belong there. It actually belongs here. Because after we set the starting lane, then it's time to ask for the second item. When we get to this block here, that means we're actually storing that item. So that's why we need to separate these two blocks. Initialize match, I think we changed that already, if I remember correctly. Okay. Now we have to find it. I think we changed that one already. I added one more item to it.
It's right there.
Is it,
Yeah, down at the bottom.
oh yeah, okay, you got it. Right here.
Yeah.
Yep, so we have that one done already. And so it's time to finish this up by saying, okay, now we are getting a response back, but this time it is for the maximum number of lanes. So now we just need to use our own procedure, which returns a value, so we need a trash can to store that. So we'll just call this trash can. We'll set it to true or false, doesn't really matter, because we are going to override it anyway. So we'll set trash can to we still need to ask for a numerical value. So that means before we get into this block here, we need a conditional statement to see whether response is a number or not. So we need another control, which is a conditional statement. Put it here, and at this time we just look at math, go all the way to the bottom, and ask whether response is a number. And then we need to handle both the then and the else case, because in one case we can actually do some processing. In the other case, we just have to ask again and go like, well, we need a number. You better specify a number. So we'll go to if it is a number, then we will go ahead and actually set it. And the way to do it is to use our update KV list procedure and specify KV list is our match information. The key is going to be my global variable called max length string. The new value is response, because that's the specified value. And we do want to overwrite, that should not be an issue, because this should be fresh at this point. So we go to text, go to a Boolean and specify true here. Alright, that's the easy one. Else, okay, this else is corresponding to what if we're getting a non-number, okay? Now, this one is a little bit tricky, because we have the start lane number already stored at this point. And it's just that we are not getting a number for the maximum number or the total number of lanes. So now we have a choice and say, do you want to start from the beginning or what? Okay, because now we really do have a choice. So to be annoying, there's no way to back out of this. And as long as somebody gives me a non-number, okay, and I will emphasize number and specify this number here. So basically this is an error message. Okay, this is the second time I ask you for a number. Give me a number. Don't give me something that is not a number. So this will basically just keep this going. It will keep asking the end user for the total number of lanes or the number of the last lane until we actually get a number. There's no way to back out of this. I don't process cancel in this case, even though I allow a cancel. So it's probably a good idea to allow the cancel. Yeah, because otherwise people will click the cancel and.
True. You just have an error message that says you have displeased Darth Lord Vader by hitting cancel.
Or we can say the Emperor will not be as lenient as me, right?
There you go.
That is one of the best lines of those episodes. I mean, Vader didn't really talk much in those movies, and yet whenever he talks, it's like wow.
He's a man of few words.
Yes, but
Very
very
words.
useful, powerful words.
Yeah.
Yes, that
What are
would
your
be
thoughts on 7?
forceful. All right, so I think we got it done. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it. We're not making use of the maximum or the number of the last lane just yet, but I want to make sure that the logic of inputting it is working first before we move on and make use of that. So. I really think App Inventor makes writing apps very accessible to basically a lot of people, because you don't need to know Java or a lot of stuff related to Java.
It'd be nice though if they had
If they output your Java code,
or if they had several quote unquote modes. So like if you have this would be like basic,
mm-hmm.
and then have an advanced mode where you can specify your own code to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be nice.
All right, so we're gonna say that we are starting on lane 2, and it's not triggering the dialog box. Oh, you know what? I spent all this time to write a procedure. It's not even getting called. I did not change the code to call process start lane text. Okay. All right. So we need to change that, right?
That
So
would
we'll
help.
go.
That'd be helpful.
That would be very helpful, won't it? Yes. All right. Get response. Yep, starting here. Okay, but this one is checking whether it's a number already. So this is gonna hijack the error checking of the of the other one. That is interesting. It will still work out. Yeah, it will still work out because the error message is to ask the person to enter. Lane number has to be a number, so it will still be okay. I think it will still work out. All right, so let's go ahead and build it again. This time it's particularly slow.
Big day at MIT.
Or somebody is submitting an application to be recompiled, that has a lot of stuff in it.
I was in class at MIT and everybody's trying to build their application.
This is actually from the media lab of MIT. It's not from the usual.
They got from Google themselves.
Yes,
At least the
Google.
original version.
Yeah, originally it was a Google project.
Yeah.
But it was abandoned by Google. They didn't want to work on it anymore.
Yeah.
And then MIT picked it up and go like, yeah, we still want it.
I wonder if they regret doing that at any point.
Google?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think Google really cares. Because
they
they
have plenty
don't.
of other projects.
They got other projects, and they want people to probably use Java, to write the apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will run all the way. It's backward compatible to Android
It'd be
2.3.
nice if they had a quote-unquote app store client for the gallery. I think is what it's called, the MIT App Inventor Gallery.
Right, but App Inventor has its own gallery already.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Is have an app on for Android itself.
Oh,
You could
okay.
access, gallery store basically.
That'll be interesting.
I'm sure there's probably a reason why they haven't done it, but it'd be nice.
All right. Long press. Start with lane number 2. Oops. And now it asks me for the number of the last lane. Let's input something that is not right, okay? So we'll spell out 4, and it will complain and say lane number has to be a number. And then it should ask me, it didn't trigger the logic. Okay, but that's okay. Whenever we do this, it starts from the beginning again. So lane 2, and then we'll do a lane 4 here. All right. Okay, so next thing we need to do is to check whether to add the logic so that if we just have a normal click on the lane number, it will increment, but once it gets to the lane number of the last one and we click one more time, it has to go all the way back to the beginning. And then when the incremented number matches the start lane number, it should stop and give us a screen and say, okay, this match is finished. We're done. Okay. So finishing touches at this point. Okay, so the finishing touches would be, the first one is to, when we change number, we have to add a logic. So a lot of logic has to be added to the click of lane number, so which I kind of remember to be here on the top, somewhere down here, right there. Okay, got it. All right. So what we need to do now is to do several number checking, okay? Because we have to check for reaching the total number of lanes. That's one we need to. The first one we need to check, and then the second one is to check whether we are getting back to the start lane number, because in both cases it is special. Right. So we'll go ahead and look at this logic here, and then figure out where are we supposed to put that logic. Any idea? There are several ways to do it. There are really several ways to do it. This we can just kind of let it do its thing, but the problem is this is increment and display, so it will show it on the screen. So maybe we don't want to increment just yet. We want to do a comparison, check it, then we will go ahead and do the increment and display after we change it to a certain point. So we'll do something before increment and display. And we'll do a conditional statement. All right, so the first thing we need to check is whether we are ending the entire match or not. In other words, is this a number that is one less than the total number of lanes? So the next increment is going to be the actual total number of lanes, or the number of the last lane. Is that making any sense? But we also have to take into account of the wrapping around part. In other words, what if trying to put it. If we did increment, okay, and we get back to, how should I put it? I'm trying to formulate, how to say this. We're trying to find out, whether we are ending the match or not. So we have to use the logic to do the wrap around first, and then see if that is our start lane number, and then we can determine, oh, okay, we are all done, we're all set. So we cannot make that determination here. We have to do it first with increment and display. Now, increment and display does not take into consideration whether we are at the end of everything. So that would be the first thing we need to take care of, is are we at the end of all the lanes. So that would be a math comparison. And we're going to check our current lane number, which we use this block to find out. So we'll use global match information as our pairs, and then the key is going to be our current lane number. So we are now checking whether the current lane number is already the last lane or not. Okay, so we'll replicate this block, and this time we compare to the maximum number of lanes. So if my current lane number is the maximum or the lane number of the last one, I have to do the wraparound thing. The wraparound thing is not difficult to do, because we're just resetting one of these values to something else. So we'll still need to use a trash can. So I'm going to duplicate this block all the way up here. We'll throw away one of them. So this one we can just go ahead and throw away. Delete. And with this one, we are going to change the lane number back to 0, not 1. Okay. The reason why I'm setting it back to 0 is I'm going to use increment and display to change it to 1. So that will do the change to 1. But after it changes to 1, then I'm going to check whether this is my start lane number. Because if my lane number right now, after doing all the increment, wrapping around and whatnot, is my start lane number, I'm all done. Okay. So that is this is where I need to do all that logic and put these into the initialized, put it inside the conditional statement. So I need another conditional statement here that basically it would do a similar comparison of what we did here. So I'm gonna be a little bit lazy because this is really kind of a big chunk of code. I don't want to rewrite it from scratch. So we'll stash this code here, and this time I'm comparing my lane number to not the maximum lane number, but I'm comparing it to the first lane that we are in. If it does match exactly, that means we're at the end of the game. Okay, the match is over. So we'll put an else block here, and basically say if it does not match, then we are still going on with the match. Let's reset the target number and reset the lane, the attempt number. Otherwise, we can just say, hey, we're all done. So without really doing a whole lot, at this point, I'm just going to use a notifier to display, the text here. And this time, I don't want to use a show alert because I don't want it to kind of disappear after 2 or 3 seconds. I want the end user to actually have to click a button to confirm and say, okay, got it, we are done with this match. So we'll use a show message. And the message is going to be the match is over. Okay. Yay. The button goes. It's up. Okay. I'll just specify OK for now. Okay. All right. So ideally speaking, you also want to have some other way to disable the screen that we already have, just so that at this point there's no way to enter any additional score. It's pretty easy to do because we grouped everything inside a vertical layout construct. So if we disable the vertical layout construct, that will disable all the input, all the buttons and whatnot. So that's one easy thing to do, because we just go to vertical arrangement, or arrangement not layout, and we can change its visibility to false. Then we are all done with this entire match. So we change the visibility to false, and that's it, okay? Because that ends the entire match. All right, so I think I put in all the logic now. Let's go ahead and build the application. Sorry?
Except for one button, attempt scores.
Huh?
Except for attempt scores. That one falls outside the vertical arrangement. Attempt scores, list speaker scores.
Oh, that's just that's for testing purposes, right? Yeah, that's for testing purposes. We can hide it, or this, you know, we can just make it invisible to begin with, you know, because it's really just for testing purposes. Same thing with the debug part here. We can just hide them. Then we have a blank screen left when it's all done. All right, so let's go ahead and build it, test it.
So for this, I know part of it was to be able to send it, but could you say if you just want to copy the text to the clipboard, is that possible?
That is a good question. I'll take a look at, you know, whether there's an ability to do that. I do not think that is possible, but we'll go through all the components and see any one of them may be able to do that. We want to switch to here. Oh, we want to switch to the emulator because it's unloaded, and we'll make a simple one. You know, just make sure that it has the ability to end the entire thing. So long press. So we set the start lane to be 2, and then we set the total number of lanes to be 4. And without using these buttons, I'm just going to change the lane number to 3, 4, and then it should go back to 1. And when I click one more time, it should tell me that we are ending the match, it's all done, and then make everything disappear. Yay, the match is over. Okay, and then nothing happens. Nothing. Well, I mean, you know, that's right, exactly. So, yep, go ahead.
Can you demonstrate the use of Monkey?
The use of what?
Monkey, the ADB tool.
Monkey. Oh, okay. I haven't really done anything with that yet. When you run ADB by itself, is it part of the option? Logcat is useful by itself for debugging purposes. Nope, not this one.
Oh, ADB shell and then Monkey.
Oh, okay, inside shell.
Yeah, it has to be inside.
Did it just say monkey?
Yeah. And then
Okay, there we go. So monkey is actually a shell command that you run basically just through GDB. So monkey allows you to interact with different types of elements, I think.
yeah, there's a basic one.
Okay, I'll have to kind of take a look at this first
Okay.
to figure out how to use it.
Here's the link to there.
Okay. Okay, now getting back to the clipboard, you know, thing, can we copy the text to the clipboard so that we can switch to a different app and then paste it, right? Okay. I don't think it's going to be in user interface. You can always put it into a text box, and you know, I think in the text box you can probably double click the entire content, and the copy option would display. And we can take a look at the other ones too. You know, connectivity, nope. Storage. Nope, doesn't look like it should be here. Social. Nope. Send Answers no. Drawing probably not there. If you put it into a text box, I think that would do it. Because a text box in an App Inventor application is still a text box. So the usual thing that you can do inside the text box, which includes selecting the entire text and long press, to pop up, copy, will still be there. But as far as the application is concerned, I don't think it has direct access to the clipboard. We can search for that, because if you just search for App Inventor clipboard, if there's a way to do it, it's probably already here. How copy app text and paste to device clipboard. This is probably early too. It's 2012. You can copy text with AI to the clipboard, but you could use share via. Okay, so there you go. But the question is, what are you sharing? There's only one option to do it. Put the text you want to copy into an HTML with a web viewer, then long press, then you can select the text you want to copy. Then it says no other option. But I think the share ability may be a better way to do it. I haven't really tested this one. The share is going to be in social. Okay. So if you click on sharing, click on more information. Sharing is a non-visible component that enables sharing files and/or messages between your app and other apps installed. The component will display a list of the installed apps that can handle the information provided, and will allow the user to choose one to share the content with. So you can email and so on. The file path can be taken directly from any other component, such as the camera, blah, 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 but can also be specified directly to read from storage. So it seems to me that you have to store it into a text file first, then you can use sharing to specify, okay, this is the file that I want to share, and then you can specify how you want to share it. And that depends on what is actually installed at the time, because if you have installed, let's say Dropbox, then Dropbox becomes an option, which is really cool, because now you can upload a file with the match information up to Dropbox. Yep.
Could you publish this, please?
You mean the source code, the AIA file? Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. All right.
It's very helpful to track the progress.
Right. Well, plus you can also go back and actually comment on the code. So this way you are going through the code a second time, and by commenting and analyzing the code, you're getting a better understanding of how it works and possibly how to integrate the same stuff into your own program. All right. So let me do just that, and I'll see you guys next Monday, which is the second last lecture of the class.